One of these products did $11 million a year. Another one made $1 million in revenue and $0 profit. Today, I'm going to show you 5 products I personally dropship and what happened with each one. All right, let's go way back to the beginning. In 2015, I bought a course that was teaching me how to dropship. And in the very beginning, I was looking around at products that were familiar to me. My wife's uncle was the national sales rep at Memphis Pellet Grills at the time. So immediately my brain gravitated towards pellet grills. No matter where I went, there was a pellet grill that we were eating off of when it came to her family functions. So I slowly started building a barbecue site, and I got too scared to call suppliers, if I'm honest with you. And so when someone in the forum said, hey, I'm sick, I need to sell my store, and they were only asking $400, I thought that was my ticket out. They already had some suppliers. I bought the store for $400. The day I bought the store, the biggest supplier on board dropped me. I never got them back the whole time I owned the business, by the way. So I was kind of back at square one. I had to call suppliers. And after I, spent some time dilly-dallying and, procrastinating as most people do in the beginning, if I'm honest with you, before actually launching, I picked up the phone, I called suppliers, I landed 20 out of 20. And I was off to the races. So that happened in about April of that year. About 8 months later, while working full-time at a Walmart distribution center, driving a forklift, stacking pallets of dog food and cat food, I sold that business. I sold it for 1 year's pay at the Walmart distribution center. So this business, it really didn't teach me some grand lesson, but it showed me this shit actually works. This is possible. Now, I kind of want to show you this one, so I'm going to show you what this site looked like. So thanks to the Wayback Machine, here's a quick look at what that site was. It was the3dprinterguy.com. You can go have a look for yourself if you want to. I think for my first go, I did a pretty decent job here. Now, not everything loads because you are using Wayback Machine, but a decent looking site. And I'd still sell 3D printers today. I have no issue with this niche. I think I did a wonderful job. Another product I sold was composting toilets. Now, I know what you're thinking. That doesn't sound like the sexiest industry. And I didn't think so either. I actually got on a mastermind call. There were supposed to be 4 of us on the call, and only 2 of us showed up. And so doing what I do best, I gave that other person a zillion ideas about their business. And he was selling composting toilets. And I said, why don't you just sell to the person who's buying this? And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, who buys the most of this? He's like, well, RVers and a lot of tiny home people buy it. And I was like, well, why don't you turn this into a tiny house store and sell everything inside of the tiny house? And honestly, that was kind of my first aha to what we teach here at Dropship Breakthru of selling to the who. By the end of that call, that person literally gave me half the business. And I'm not even joking, just gave it to me and said, let's go build that. And so we built it. We ended up building shoptinyhouses.com. We built a 75,000 person Facebook community around tiny house living. We grew it fast and we served that community well. And shortly thereafter, I would say about a year into it, the partner that I had on this business offered to buy me out. And I could not think of a better time to be bought out. I was still deep in credit card debt at that time in my personal life with my then wife and I. And that was my opportunity to get out of all of it. And so I took it. I exited that business. And, funny story with that one, and maybe not so funny, is the day I told my wife that we're paying off all our debt is the day she asked for a divorce. And so quite a shift in my life there from a really high to a really low. But honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. All right, another product I sold is golf simulators. Now, these can come in all sizes, right? They can come from these very arcadey looking things to like super high-end things that are at very high-end establishments that I'm sure you've seen, and everywhere in between. How this started was during the very last year of my marriage, I was consulting to young gentlemen on their business. I helped them get to $250K in their first 3 months, and they hit 1 million shortly thereafter in their first year. Now, right at the end of there, they said, hey, how would you like to come on as a partner for this business? And, it was shortly after my wife had asked for the divorce, and I thought, well, what a good time to go after something new. And so I took them up on their offer, and we grew from 1 million in revenue in that first year to $11 million in revenue 2 years later. Now, right before COVID, those same 2 gentlemen came to me and said, hey, I think we're ready to do this on our own. And we parted ways. They bought me out of the business for a very high 6-figure sum. And I think we were all happy for it. Now, it did happen literally days before COVID. And shout out to them because I'm sure they just absolutely crushed in the middle of COVID when nobody was going anywhere, and indoor golf, I'm assuming, thrived. So shout out to them. But what I learned from that business is that serving an obsession is the way to go. Serving a passion is the way to go. And the best part of that was I'm an actual golfer and my partners were actual golfers. And so we knew the lingo, we knew the problems, we knew everything we could possibly want to know about an industry, and that doesn't always happen. When I sold 3D printers, I didn't know anything. Often someone would call and I'd have to go Google the answer and then call them back. Where in the golf industry, we knew what problems they were calling about. We knew what they were trying to solve for. We knew what the products did. And honestly, we saw opportunities everywhere because we lived in this world. So I'm a big proponent of selling things that you actually know something about. You don't have to, of course, but this was a good example of how that could really work for you if you know what you're talking about, if you're part of that community, if you are part of that obsession. All right, another product I sold was pitching machines. I'm actually going to show you this one too. So this is Any Season Sports. Again, thank you Wayback Machine for pulling this up. I started this while working with the golf simulator company. Again, I was a minority owner on that company, and I wanted to build something for myself in the meantime. And I started building this because I fucking love baseball. Maybe you can tell by the bats behind me, the bobbleheads, the hat. I'm a Minnesota Twins junkie, and I love baseball. And I thought, worked for golf. Why can't I build out what is going to work here? And I wanted to go a little bit wider, and so I said Any Season Sports, right? So you can see if these menus work on Wayback Machine, you can see the different types of sports I was looking to move into at the time this screenshot was taken and where I had moved into and some of the brands on board. I thought, why don't I dive in here and see if it works? And I did well. I made 6 figures on this business in revenue, but the margins were absolutely razor thin on this one. So some of these pitching machines that I was selling, less than 10% margins, which is not what you're trying to do in any business, let alone in dropshipping, where I need to go acquire these customers. Maybe some of these brands don't have the best margins. They have people looking for their brands. Maybe they can survive a little bit longer, but reselling these things at less than 10% margin, it wasn't worth my time. Things came to an end on this business due to some other reasons, but it was for the best. It just didn't make sense to continue on with the margins that it had. And the last product I'm going to talk about today that I actually dropshipped is Standing Desk. Now, this one's unique in that we did $1 million in revenue and made literally zero profit on it. It did end up being a great story in the end, but this product in particular was frustrating. When we would get big orders pre-COVID from businesses, things were great. When you would get individual orders during COVID, where it was most people staying at home, there just wasn't a lot of margin left on the bone. So this business popped off when I met Brian at Traffic and Conversion Conference in San Diego. We hit it off. We became really good friends. We're both into baseball. We had a lot to talk about. We started selling things together. Again, we hit 1 million in revenue, but we didn't make any profits during COVID. During that time of running the business together, we actually purchased one of our suppliers. So one of our suppliers from a very, very big brand went out of business, and we purchased one of those brands. Now, Brian's been on the show way back. You'd have to go look for the episode with Brian Angel, but he's been on here to tell that whole story if you want to hear that whole thing. So we purchased that brand. And then on top of that, we went and purchased a treadmill desk brand as well. And we did all of this with no money down. Again, that probably sounds strange, but you can go hear the whole story of Brian talking about it in a previous episode of our podcast. I'll try to link it in the show notes here. Now, during COVID, Brian wanted to leave where he was. He wanted to go travel, and we decided to part ways. He wanted to go travel the country in a camper, tired of the COVID restrictions, and I was all for it. Go do what you want to do, buddy. I'm also tired of being locked up, and we decided to split ways so he could run it from the road and not have any issues of who's working, who's not working. We wanted to make sure our friendship remained top priority, so we split ways. He continued growing, and recently had a giant exit himself, so congratulations to Brian on that one. Now, look, I'm not in any of these businesses anymore. I exited them all in one way or another. But here's the thing. Every single one of these worked because I found the who, or we found the who, not a what. We didn't focus on the product. Now, this episode, I'm showing you these products, but behind all of these products is a who. Tiny house people, golfers, baseball families, remote workers, businesses that need stuff for their employees, people who want to stay moving the whole time. If you get into the treadmill desk stuff, there are people behind here, and these products solve real problems. The product was just simply a vehicle to serve them while we were trying to serve the person in general. Hence why you sell more than just a product. You sell a plethora of products that serve a human. And that's exactly what we teach in our Passion to Profit blueprint. It's how to find a group of people obsessed with something, understand what they actually need, and build real dropshipping businesses around them. Now, you don't need to be passionate about the product, although I do recommend it, but you do need to find people who are passionate about the products that you sell. So check out our Passion to Profit blueprint at dropshipbreakthru.com/passion. You can find the link down below.